President Muhammadu Buhari arrives the joint sitting of the Parliament. In his presentation, the president read out his administration's achievements in the outgoing year, pegging the 2018 budget performance at 67%.
Of the total appropriation of 9.12 trillion naira, 4.59 trillion naira had been spent by 30th September 2018 against the prorated expenditure target of 6.84 trillion naira. This represents 67% performance.
He highlights the projections for the next fiscal year, which include an oil price benchmark of $60 per barrel, oil production rate at 2.3 million barrels per day, and an exchange rate of 305 naira to a US dollar. The budget estimates show that 4.04 trillion naira has been set aside for recurrent expenditure.
A total expenditure of 8.83 trillion naira is estimated for 2019 budget. This includes grants and donor funds of 209.92 billion naira. This provision is less than 2018 federal government appropriated expenditure estimate of 9.12 trillion naira.
More importantly, the president says the new minimum wage projection has been included in the next fiscal document.
I am committed to addressing the issue of a minimum wage, and I will be sending a bill to you, the National Assembly, on this. However, in order to avoid a fiscal crisis for the federal government, as well as the states, it is important to devise ways to ensure that its implementation does not lead to an increase in the level of borrowing.
He has also directed the sale of all recovered assets to fund the 2019 budget.
As we have returned to the path of growth, I have directed that action on all our revenue initiatives be expedited. I have already issued a number of presidential directives on the disposal of recovered assets.
A breakdown of the budget estimates for next year shows that the Ministry of Interior gets 569.07 billion naira, while Defense has 435.62 billion naira. Education gets 426.24 billion naira, and Health has 315.62 billion naira. Joke Adisa, TVC News, Abuja.
All right, that's the background and the summary of part of what the president said yesterday. We have in the studio the CEO of Finance with Mukhtar Mohammed. Good morning. Nice to have you join us.
Good morning.
Great. And we also have joining us chartered accountant and financial expert, Bala Zaka. Good morning.
Thank you.
Nice to have you join us.
Thank you.
Right. We also have on Skype another financial expert, Nameka Obiareri, joining us on Skype. Nameka, good morning. Okay, we expect him to join us as we get along.
Connect with him.
Now, let's start. Before we go into the figures and all of those implications and making us understand sector by sector, you saw the drama that took place yesterday. All Nigerians watched. The whole world was watching the drama of members of the National Assembly, some booing the president, others cheering the president, and all of that. What do you make of this? Balazaka, let me ask you.
Well, sometimes you have exchange of banters like that, but the key thing is the moderation. The key thing is to have it at the back of your mind that as you are doing that, you are beam to the entire world. And when you have exchange of banters like that, somehow, somewhere, somebody has to have some level of control. I think I saw it. I wasn't really too disturbed, because when the booing and the jeering started, there was a way the president calmed it with just simple, remarks. and was saying you probably need to take it easy so that we can get something across
But
to Nigeria.
despite his statement of the fact that we are supposed to be above this, he didn't really stop them from what they were doing.
Strange enough, you had a chronology to that time. Before that time, we were not sure the National Assembly complex was even going to be open. And before that time, you had already inter and intra-party, I expected something worse. I really expected something worse.
Mukhtar.
So I was very happy with what I saw. It was well moderated, but based on that time.
On the part of the president. But it's interesting you actually point out the atmosphere even before that day. Nobody was really sure whether the president was going to have, the floor to present the 2019 budget. Mukhtar, were you surprised at the events of yesterday?
No, not at all. I mean, it's democracy. We've seen it happen you've seen it in the British Parliament when Theresa May, even during this Brexit, it is someone who stand up and say, look, no, we don't, they'll jail her, they'll boo her. Also, we've seen it happen in South Africa, with Julius telling them, look, you cannot talk here, you cannot talk here. So, and others were supporting.
But Nigerians have always been known to be people who respect
the only way, the only thing I got...
shouldn't have even played out?
Yes, the only place I got a little bit worried was when it came to the exchange. Physicality of both sides. I think that was not good for national image on national television globally. I think that's the only side. But to say you boo the president, you jeer the president, remember we shouldn't forget there's history. The legislators and the current executive have not been in good time right from day one. The process where Bukola Saraki became the Senate president, the process where Dogara became the Senate president, the process whereby Dogara and Saraki defected to PDP.
So all of that is playing
out. So all of that is playing out. You could see the body language from Saraki and Dogara.
And it didn't matter
Dogara,
that this was serious business, budget presentation.
Well, you need to look at who you are presenting the budget to, whether at this moment it's serious business for them. I don't think at this moment a legislator value anything budgetary. They think about
but the point there is, if a legislator doesn't value the process of why they are even elected as legislators in the first place, because election is just a process of making them legitimate members of an institution of government.
You see, you're talking from a place of you not being a politician, you being a patriotic Nigeria. For the politician, politics first before patriotism.
Before anything else.
That's what they do. They are not, a politician does not think of, especially Nigerian politicians. They don't think of what would bring food to the next to the
Okay,
table.
so let's go to the serious business of the day, trying to break down this budget 2019, a budget of continuity. You might want to ask, what exactly are we continuing in the 2019 budget? And looking at the whole budget, what exactly stands out for you the most, Balazaka?
Well, for me, all I can see is that somehow, somewhere, the level of discouragement some of us had is not as wide as we thought. When you talk about budget, basically you're talking about future plan in monetary terms. And when you have effective planning, from the definition of planning, planning reveals the shortest route to your goal. It doesn't mean that you will not have routes to your goal, but when you plan, then you can have the shortest route. And from what I have seen, I think to a reasonable extent, one or two fundamental things will be analyzed in the course of this discussion. And if we really take them into consideration, somehow, somewhere, I think Nigeria will still get itself on the right track. The journey may be slow, but I think it's clear that we have an idea of a destination.
All right. Mukhtar, the 2019 budget is predicated on $60 per barrel, as the case may be, the cost of oil price rather. And if you also look at the production of oil is also benchmarked on 2.3 million barrels per day. And right now, we don't have up to that. We still produce crude oil less than 2 million barrels per day. Right now, also, the crude oil price is below $60 already from this standpoint. How will this affect or impact the budget?
It's going to be very, the impact is going to be massive, because knowing fully well that all the funding that we're going to do on various sectors is going to come from that, our cash cow, which happen to be the crude oil price. Unfortunately, we've not gotten it right when it comes to pricing of our petroleum product. It's very, very unfortunate. We tend to think above board. We tend to estimate. We've forgotten that OPEC is a cartel. OPEC is playing, there's politics in OPEC. We raise our estimation, and then as it stands now, we are already $2 behind. Yes. So there's already a deficit already in the budget.
$58.
And not only that, when you look at the production level, remember just of the recent OPEC meeting, there's going to be cuts in production, and it's going to affect Nigeria. It didn't affect us the last time, but this time OPEC has insisted that every member country will be affected. So already then you see there will be the challenge of production.
That was made to Nigeria and Libya before.
So there will be the challenge of production, not meeting production target, and then not meeting the benchmark. And what we've done is we just hope with that now we could see serious business from the legislators coming to correct that abnormality. I feel that's the only way. If the patriotism is really in play, then they will correct the abnormality.
All right, let's bring in a financial expert, Nnaemeka Obiari, who's joining us via Skype. Good morning. Thanks for joining us, Nnaemeka.
Thanks for having me, Ngozi.
Yes, this is an election year budget, a budget of continuity, 8.8 trillion naira budget. Looking at the breakdown between the recurrent and capital expenditure, take it from there. A recurrent 4.04 trillion and capital 2.03 trillion.
Ngozi, I am surprised that we label it budget of continuity. First of all, we all are aware that if you look at the budget assumptions, you will clearly understand that I don't see any continuity from where we are today. Capital budget of 2.031 trillion, down from 2.4 trillion in 2018 budget. Recurrent expenditure up by about 4.4 trillion naira. Because let us even look at the assumptions of this budget. Oil prices today is trading at $56.56 per barrel. We are using $60 per barrel. What is the global outlook for 2019? As I'm talking to you, Ngozi, the United States of America, by the second quarter of 2019, will inject additional 2 million barrels per day crude oil into the already saturated global daily supply volume of 93 million barrels per day. As I'm talking to you, Ngozi, OPEC is planning by the first quarter of 2019 to reduce output by 1.2 million barrels per day. Nigeria does not in any way control the price of the crude oil in the open market. Based on prognosis, based on what is happening in other parts of the world, every global analyst see the price of the crude hovering between $55 to $60 per barrel for the rest of 2019. On what empirical foundation did the federal government of Nigeria come up with such ambitious $60 per barrel? On what assumptions, on what factual basis did they arrive at output of 2.3 million barrels per day when OPEC is planning to cut output, when America is already planning to flood the market with extra 2 million barrels per day by the second quarter of 2019 with additional 184 wells that they have drilled? And everyone knows the perspective of Donald Trump towards energy prices. As long as he remains the president of America, with the much influence that he has and the output of America, influence over Saudi Arabia and some of this oil cartel, because there is no way oil can do above $60 unless something dramatic happens in the global market. So on the assumption level, we are battling on a long run. We have an economy that is already growing at 1.81%. Somebody comes up with an idea that they are going to grow the economy by 3%. Yet, the assumptions do not in any way support it. How can an economy like Nigeria, globally, we have a global consolidated infrastructure development plan that clearly outlines that for Nigeria to be able to have some of the huge deficit that it has in infrastructure, we must have sustained investment of at least $50 to $100 billion by way of both physical and non-physical revenue.
All right,
Okay.
Nnameka, we're going to have to let
Nnameka,
this go round so that our other guests in the studio can actually, make their inputs too.
All right, Bala, you listen to that.
Very
Now,
well.
The budget projections or the estimates to which the budget has been predicated already from this standpoint seem not to be in tandem.
Shaky.
It's shaky already.
Correct.
Now, the National Assembly, whenever they decide, they're going to start looking into it. Even though this is an election year, a lot of people yesterday were saying that it's possible the National Assembly members may not even look at the budget until maybe after elections. Whether that is going to be is different. But do you think the National Assembly is going to make adjustments to the budget?
Well, I will expect adjustments. And you see, there is something I really want us to also bring to the surface. Most of the time, the whole of Nigeria knew that there was going to be a budget presentation yesterday. But do you know that we're only talking about federal government budget? Individual states are supposed to make their budget presentation. And to me, I'm closer to the state than actually the federal.
As well as
so
local
some of
governments.
these things need to be taken into consideration. This is just the federal government. And it is time also we start checking what our respective states present. Then the assumptions and the variables. If you look at the $60 per barrel, I think that was the assumption when they were talking about the medium-term expenditure framework. Generally, when we talk about budget, and especially in the context of Nigeria, and we want to come up with a benchmark, I always expect, or I would want to see a differential of at least $10 between the global crude oil price and our local benchmark as Nigeria. So in this context now, I will expect something less than $50 per barrel. In other words, if the expectation or the projection is that the price of crude oil will hover around maybe 60, 70, or 50 something, then we should go down by at least $10. That helps. You don't claim to be smart having deficit budget. There is nothing wrong in having a surplus budget. That's one. Then secondly, for our own interests as Nigeria, and also so that we don't send a wrong signal to the global community, the production we are talking about there includes what we call condensates, because we have our own limit, which is about 1.8 million barrels per day, even with the concession. And that simply means after the concession, we are likely to go down. So in real sense, the real crude oil production will be up. Currently, it's about 1.8 and may remain like that till we know our figure that we need to cut down with. The other one is called condensate. The condensate is not part of OPEC or OPEC's value. So we always need to differentiate, because as we send this budget, the whole world is looking at, we wouldn't want people to think, oh, so Nigeria wants to already go above OPEC values.
Well,
it includes condensates.
The president has actually said that dipping oil prices will not necessarily affect the outlook for 2019. And he's directing NNPC to take all measures to ensure that they can actually meet the projected $2.3 million per barrel. We're talking about subsidy.
Correct.
Let me begin with Mukhtar, since you were speaking before we went on that break. You were saying that, make that point about subsidy.
For me, subsidy is one of the drill in our Nigerian economy. It has been drilling us for a while, and we've not been able to find a solution to it. And for me, I don't think we are subsidizing the poor. We are subsidizing the rich. That's why, because I always give this analogy. Even if the poor has a car, how many cars does the poor have? When you say you are subsidizing, how many cars does the poor have? Even if the poor manage to have a car, how many cars does it? Some of the rich have up to 6 to 7 cars. Some of them have up to 3 to 4 cars. The average rich man has about 4 cars.
Of course, you're taking that stance because Balazaka seems to support the idea of
subsidy.
Yes, he seems to support the idea of subsidy on its terminology that some of the poor are being employed by the rich. So I don't.
You see, I supported subsidy yesterday. I am in support of, in the context of Nigeria, as a country that is an emerging economy, as a country that has a weak currency, as a country whose strategic domestic sector, strategic industrial sector, and strategic commercial sectors are down. And as a country that is almost 100% an importing country, I support subsidy today and I will support it tomorrow. And the reason is this. You see, most of the time we have to be very careful when there are global standards and we look at things from the prism of Nigeria. Subsidy is an economic cushioning mechanism. First of all, look at it from that angle. So the fact that subsidy is not being respected or valued or handled properly in Nigeria does not keep it away from the global or universal definition. It's just like when you say democracy. We know the concept of democracy. If you go to some countries today, you see a leader, they are practicing democracy, but a leader has gone 20 terms or 5 terms and is still there in power. Will you say you will throw away democracy as a system of governance?
Or we should call it, by another name.
In the context of Nigeria,
yes,
subsidy should be seen as an economic cushioning mechanism.
But
the real challenge,
ideally,
the real challenge
on the ideal ground, isn't it?
Yes, but you see,
because it's been abused over the time,
And
where
it's been abused.
Nigerians no longer trust the issue of
let me
subsidy.
let me tell you, if it is abused, what you do is you don't throw away the concept. You fight those who are abusing the concept.
All right, let me bring Emeka Obiariri in here now. We're talking about the issue of subsidy because over the years, when governments go, government come, the criticism over the issue of subsidies and all of that, but it seemed, in the real terms, it seemed difficult to get rid of the subsidy. Has it really come to stay? And Balazaka is saying it's beneficial, on the ideal terms, it's beneficial, it's a cushioning mechanism for a weak economy like Nigeria. What do you say, Nemeka?
Mike, honestly speaking, I'm shocked that somebody is still talking about subsidy in Nigeria. Mike, let's look at, I don't want to look at the Western world. Mike, Niger Republic, our nearest neighbor, produces 20,000 barrels of crude oil every day, and they refine it in Niger Republic, and they refine it at Angadem. As I'm talking to you, Mike, a liter of petroleum product in Niger Republic is selling for 320 naira, 90 cents. In Cameroon, a liter of the PMS is selling for $1.10. Mike, you can confirm this. In Benin Republic, in Liberia, in Ghana, these are poorer West African countries. They've done away with subsidy of consumption of petroleum because they know it is corruption infested. Mike, are you aware that in 2018 alone, in 9 months, the NNPC told us that we spent 2.56 trillion naira. If you annualize it, we will be spending 3.4 trillion naira on petroleum product importation. This is a country, based on the speech of Mr. President, we spent only 847 billion naira on capital expenditure, and we spent 3.4 trillion on white petroleum products. Let us fix the facts, Mike. As I'm talking to you, if you look at the report of United States Energy Agency, the US in 2015 was consuming 1.4 billion liters of petroleum product a day. In 2018, it is 1.48 billion, an increase of 4.5%. South Africa, it is same 5%. In Canada, it is 6% increase. In UK, their consumption of the PMS went down from 47 million barrels a day in 2015 to 49 million barrels in 2015 to 47 million barrels in 2018. In Nigeria, our consumption jumped from 28 million barrels to 28 million liters a day to 60 million liters in 2016, a year after. 115% consumption, 115% increase. Mike, can't you see something that is wrong there? In the whole world, in Cameroon, in Niger Republic, in Chad, their consumption of the PMS over the last 3 years did not jump by more than 5%. The pattern is consistent around the whole world. In Nigeria,
what do you think is wrong, really? I mean, because in laying out this budget, not much has been heard about plans to really fix the 4 moribund refineries. And,
Ngozi,
yeah.
In 2007, Obasanjo did the best thing any government could do. by selling 2 of those refineries to the Blue Star Consortium that was led by Aliko Dangote and Femi Otedola. For whatever reason best known to his successors, they reversed it. If those refineries had been sold as at that time, because the only way we can get out of the mess we are in today is for us to totally liberalize the downstream oil and gas sector, privatize and concession as much as possible, sell off all the moribund downstream oil and gas assets from distribution to storage and what have you. The only country in the whole of the sub-Saharan African nation that is still subsidizing the PMS is Nigeria. Chad is not poorer than Nigeria. Niger Republic is not poorer than Nigeria. Benin Republic is not poorer than Nigeria. Liberia is not poorer than Nigeria. But these countries discover the truth.
Okay.
There is no country that will continue to subsidize consumption that will make progress unless we want to go the way of Venezuela.
Okay.
There you
And
go.
that is what we
Okay.
are
All right,
going to do.
you made the
No,
point
no.
there. You hit the nail on the head.
Mukhtar?
Well,
You see, my challenge with the subsidy thing is you don't even have the correct data. We don't have the correct data. It's not about because we have to subsidize for the sake of subsidy. And remember, in the 2018 budget, there was no provision for subsidy. It's only 2019 budget, and his provision is about 300 and something billion. Now, we are already saying we are in 2018 that we did not project for. We have entered trillion. So how are we going to manage it? It doesn't tally. We need to get our acts together. Is it that in the year of recession, in the year that we've been crying of job loss, in the year that the economic downturn has hit Nigerians, Nigerians have bought more cars, Nigerians are traveling farther? We need to get these facts right before we begin to say about subsidy. Nobody's against subsidy, but who are you subsidizing for? Let's be sure.
That's a big question. Balazaka, the point there is that, you know, when it comes to the ideals, like you have said, what originally subsidy is meant for, in fact, why was it even brought in the first place? It was to assist, you know, to cushion some effect, like you have said. But since it was introduced in the early 80s or so, or early, late 80s or early 90s, up until now, Nigeria has not been able to recover from it and move forward.
You know, I think there will, to be honest, there will be a need for a national debate on this subsidy. There will be. If not, certain things will go wrong. It's just like when you hear average Nigerians saying, deregulate the downstream. Most of these people don't know the consequence of that. Before we deregulated, I mean, diesel. I mean, when we deregulated, diesel was what? 120, right? When we deregulated, diesel is now 360. I mean, 260. Yeah. More than 100%. How many people's salary have improved by 100%? How many people's production capacity have improved by that? And there is one big mistake a lot of people do. When you see somebody in a jeep called a chief executive, you think he's a rich man. Most of these people you see, these chief executives, are debtors to banks. Recently we saw within 3 months, 2 banks are almost gone underground. Please, let's stop using cars and houses to measure riches in Nigeria.
Yeah, but don't you think this is a self-inflicted pain? But you know,
it's not a self-inflicted pain.
I have a point to make in the subsidies.
We need to.
If you listen to Labour, when Labour was clamoring for subsidy, the government was saying that subsidy would be removed. Labour always bring the point that at the point of entrance into the Nigerian seaport, the price of those goods seems to be low. But immediately it hits the Nigerian seaport, there are a lot of charges. And then there's a lot of delay because of no infrastructure to upload this thing. So there are a lot of charges that are incurred by the importer that he wants to price in. That brings the price of this commodity up.
Beyond that, the subsidy was removed in quote so that whatever we save from subsidy will be used to actually fix
we have never got
but that has not happened.
That has never happened.
Can we go a bit on the solution? 1 or 2 solutions.
Okay, very briefly.
As long as we continue to import, and as long as Nigeria currency remains a weak currency, PMS will one day get to 1,000 naira per liter. The solution is very simple and elementary. Once you start internal domestication and refining, you will free yourself from the pressure of importation, exchange rate differential pressures, subsidies pressure will go off. The first thing you need to do is to internally domesticate the downstream. Get the crude oil, I will continue to emphasize it, from the wellhead in Naira. Move it to the respective refineries, either through pipelines or trains and, rail lines and in Naira. Refine it in Naira. Distribute it to Nigerians in Naira. Generate your Naira, consume your Naira. That pressure is what is still eating and destroying our country.
But I wonder if Nigeria is ready or has the capacity to do that.
Political leaders
because the point there is, we know the politics of petrodollar.
Yeah.
If that's what controls,
I think the biggest
business
mistake
around the
anybody
world
can do is to say
Are there
he
external
or
forces that don't want
no,
our
the
refineries
answer
to work?
is also
Definitely
straightforward.
Definitely yes.
Definitely yes.
Okay.
Definitely
but
yes.
Internally, we are talking about internally. You see, you can be a good economic manager without necessarily being a political leader. But anybody that must be a political leader must be a very good economic manager. And from that angle, when you say it's not possible, then something is wrong with the economic management of our leaders.
We'll come back to this. Now, let's give you a reaction of Nigerians concerning the proposed 2019 budget. They have been saying different things. Let's listen to them.
The budget, they should include feeding the poor, feeding the widow, feeding the orphan, feeding the grassroots. They should include agriculture. They should if they don't want them to import food, they should make provision for where people can buy a bag of rice for 5,000 at least.
My expectation for 2019, we need a new change, a total change.
We have everything. We have health, education, agricultural, defense, security, and everything. But just that the poor implementation of these things, I don't think there's not anything new that they have to include in the budget.
Expecting good or free health care for everybody out there.
Well,
right.
Nigerians have spoken
Speaking
there.
their minds there.
Yeah,
Speaking their minds.
And, well, if you look at the budget breakdown, education, health, you wonder if that will deliver on what these Nigerians are asking for. Education, 462.24 billion naira, and of course health, that's 315.82 billion naira. Mukhtar,
I think Nemeka has been standing there.
Nemeka is there too. Okay, let's give it to Nemeka. So how can this budget really deliver on what the Nigerians on the streets are asking for? Simple things, that people would ask, is this too much to ask?
Ngozi, this budget is simply a budget that is designed to just sell crude oil and share the money. This budget was never designed ab initio for the poor. Look at the overheads. 2.29 trillion naira, 40% of the budget has just been earmarked to pay 1 million civil servants, just salaries and wages. Recurrent expenditure, 4.4 trillion. Capital budget, Ngozi, 2 trillion 31 billion naira. Ngozi, last year we implemented only 847 billion as capital expenditure for 198 million people. I will give you specific. In the economy, I will take one sector and show you that this budget was never designed for the poor. Take, for instance, housing. In April 2017, under the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, we were told that the federal government of Nigeria by 2020 will do 2 million housing units. Ngozi, today Nigeria has over 17 million housing units deficit, worth over 50 trillion naira. We were told in 2017 April that they are going to do 2 million housing units from now 2017 to 2020. We were also told that they are going to put in place a private sector driven 1 trillion naira fund to kickstart it. Because as we are talking now, go to that budget and look at that budget. What provisions were made in that budget to actualize this in 2020? Ngozi, can Fashola and the federal government tell us what steps they've taken from April 2017 to December 2018 to actualize that 2 million housing units by 2020? How many of those housing units have been built? What part of that 1 trillion naira fund have been set in place? As I talk to you, nothing.
Well, as
Look
at,
at agriculture.
about a week ago, Nemeka, in Jigawa State, about 2,000 housing units have actually been put in place. Maybe it's a good place to start from. 17 million housing deficit. How long will it take to, you know, even meet?
To
actualize this is another matter entirely. Let's bring it to Mukhtar. Minimum wage. This has been factored into the 2019 budget.
He pointed it out.
Yes.
The minimum wage is a challenge because the governors are also there, and knowing that what is the percentage of Nigerians being employed by the federal government compared to the percentage of Nigerians being employed by the state government and the local government. We need to look at that. If the federal government alone is spending almost $1 trillion on their own overhead costs for just 1,000 workers, then you need to come down to the state and you see the challenges they will have in terms of revenue, the kind of revenue drive they have.
And the public workforce is just about 2% of the population.
Then you are now when you bring that minimum wage, remember that it's going to trickle down to the private sector. Even if the private sector are already paying more than that, those employed under the private sector also will see they are going to the same market with those in the public sector. They also want an increment.
And in fact,
we have a bandwagon effect that at the end of the day will be neither here nor there. Then that consumption power that the purchasing power that has come down from the Nigerian man will still come down again, because I can assure you 90% of the state governors are not ready to pay.
All right, the National Bureau of Statistics is on the papers this morning that
unemployed
Nigerians have increased from 17.6 million to 20.9 million. That's a mind-boggling statistics there.
What does that tell you? It tells you how weak this economy is, and even the 30,000 naira you are talking about is less than $100. Please, we need to accept the fact. Moving forward, political leaders must be very good economic managers.
We have to leave it here now. Balazaka, chartered accountant, thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thank
you. And Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO Finance with Mukhtar, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
We're also joined by Nemeka Obiari, financial expert, joining us via Skype there. Thank you, gentlemen, for your insights this morning on the budget of continuity.